Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go.
So I'm gonna let you kick this one off because I think you're going to be way more knowledgeable about this than me. I mean, not that I'm not very au fait with stress, because I am, but I think that you're probably going to be more knowledgeable.
Well, I don't know about that, but so today we're going to be talking about stress. And I mean, it is a huge topic, stress. Yeah. And I've been sort of really diving into stress and learning more about it more recent. Well, I've kind of always had an interest in it because it affects so much of everything, of health and wellness. But for me particularly, it was really interesting because it really affects perimenopause and how we go through that, and stress really exacerbates all of the symptoms and all of the stuff we can experience then, and also I'm looking into it in terms of breath work and how that can help us. So, I'm just trying to think of a really good place to start. I mean, I think first of all, let's just, I'm sure most people nowadays are aware of what stress is, but I mean, it's such a broad umbrella topic, which covers so much. But basically, we can have emotional stress, physical stress, internal stresses. But what ultimately is happening is when we are under pressure in some sort of way, and our body we cannot tell the difference between real danger, like 60,000 years ago when we were really being chased by dinosaurs and tigers, and we actually had to run for our life or fought to survive, or we froze, or we basically had to survive. Our stress response was triggered, and particular hormones are released, cortisol, adrenaline. But the problem is 60,000 years after that, we haven't evolved quick enough to now be able to cope with the stresses and strains that are here today. And as we know, we perceive stress, however we perceive it, our body thinks it's still as if we are running away from those tigers and lions. And so what happens in our very stressful, busy day to day is that we can get stuck in this chronic kind of state of high stress. We are literally rammed into this, constant stress, and we find it really difficult to turn it off. And the thing is, stress isn't actually bad. We need it. We need a certain amount to. Is that really annoying noise?
Yeah, I can hear something as well. It's weird.
What that is.
It's like an echo. Do you know what? I wonder whether it's because I've actually got my phone propped home. Has that made any difference?
No, it's
does that make
let me see if I can
hear a weird.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
One sec. I'm just Johnny, my cat, is he's being a bit naughty in the background. At the very beginning of this call, he was attacking my leg. I was like,
oh no, that's no good.
I mean, not only in a kind of a playful way, but anyway, he's now looking out the window, so it's fine. But carry on.
So basically, very simply, what we have to remember is in today's life, when we're dealing with stress, it's very important that we have tools and we are aware that we can switch our stress response off back into our rest and digest mode and not get jammed in it, because it's when we're jammed in it, in the sympathetic response, and when we don't turn it off, that's when a whole load of health issues can arise, and life feels hard and tough, and we've got too much cortisol in our systems, and I think as we all go through life, there are going to always be set periods of it which are going to be more stressful than others. you know, for me personally, that midlife period when I had small kids, I was teaching, my husband away a lot. That for me was an incredibly stressful period in my life, and I know I could just look back now and just see that my stress response was on. I wasn't sleeping well. I was highly emotional. I reacted to everything in the moment rather than thoughtfully responding. It can increase, weight because your system is constantly priming you to run away from that lion and creating glucose, releasing glucose into your system. And if there's nowhere for that to go, we've got our fat cells in our belly have something like 3 to 4 times of cortisol receptors. So it all kind of get sucked into those receptors on your belly. So all these things start to happen. So I think the message is, it's just stress is going to be in our lives. It's not a bad thing, but it's just having tools to ensure that our nervous systems are flexible, that they can deal with the stress, but then also they are able to then return, once that stress is over, back to the rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's that flexibility which is absolutely key.
Yeah. Picking up on one thing you've mentioned, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and just for anyone who doesn't know, and I have no idea how many people would know this or wouldn't know this, but so when we're talking about, so the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight state, and our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest or digest. So what you were talking about in terms of us, back in the day when we were being chased by a dinosaur or a saber-toothed tiger, that's us in our parasympathetic nervous system. But we're not designed to be in our parasympathetic nervous system for more than short bursts.
Our sympathetic nervous system.
My bad. Sorry, love. Yeah. Sympathetic nervous system for more than short bursts. We need to get back into our parasympathetic. And like you were saying, the problem with today's world is that we spend too much time in that fight or flight mode, even though we don't really need to be in it, because we're not really under any, true danger. Like, we're not being chased by a dinosaur, but we stay in that sympathetic fight or flight mode. And that's what we need to try and be able to learn how to get out of and be more in our parasympathetic. Now, I guess that the main thing that we probably want to talk about today is, what can we actually do when we're feeling super, super stressed? And let's face it, I think all of us probably feel stressed most of the time. And it's worth pointing out, and you did mention this at the beginning, but it's worth pointing out how huge this actually is, because when you look at the research on stress, I think everybody, we've got to have been living in a freaking cave not to know how dangerous it is to be under a constant state, in constant stress. It is so bad for us mentally, physically. It causes disease, it causes all sorts of not good things. So I think the first thing I think it's worth saying is that we have to start taking this seriously, and we have to start taking responsibility for how we're actually going to start managing our stress, and have that awareness that we need to learn how to take ourselves out of that constant stress. Because we live in a world, don't we, where it's kind of like, it's just so normal to be like, oh yeah, I'm really stressed. I mean, I say it all the fucking time. Yeah, I'm so stressed. Da, 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 da. But actually, it's not a joke. It's serious. So we need. No, go.
Yeah, no, and this is the thing. I think it's kind of almost been normalized. I actually put out a post this morning where, particularly women in midlife and going through menopause and all that sort of thing, there's been so much, and it's, this is all good, the fact that it's all out there and we're talking about it, but there's so much emphasis now on diet, on exercise, on HRT and all of that. And yes, a good diet is going to reduce that internal stress. So things like even blood sugar imbalances can cause stress within us. Exercise is a great way at completing a stress cycle and releasing some stress you might be holding in your body. Yes, they are good. But I think, again, we're not putting enough emphasis on the fact that when we're chronically stressed, actually that is more detrimental than anything. That is exacerbating everything, how you digest the food. You could be eating all the greens in the world, but if you're stressed out, if you're fully stressed and you're in that sympathetic state, you're not going to actually be able to absorb any of those beautiful nutrients, because one of the things it does, it kind of stress shuts down your systems in your body, because it's obviously focusing all the attention on survival. So you're not going to be able to digest and absorb those wonderful nutrients. So it really is kind of like almost the first thing we need to really be bringing our awareness to and focusing on when we're trying to just in terms of wellness, just in terms of being well. So yes, I agree. It is such an important thing, and yet it's become so normalized that it's okay to be stressed.
Totally. It's like being busy. It's the same. It's like an epidemic. It's like, everyone is, if you're not really busy, then, well, what's wrong with you? Like what's going on in your life that you're not like insanely busy? We think we have to be insanely busy, and it's sort of, again, that's another thing that's been so normalized. And I mean, apart from, because obviously I think that so many of the things that you and I talk about on here, they actually, a lot of it often boils down to the same core practices that we need to be incorporating into our lives. And you've already mentioned diet, exercise, sleep is another one. So, I mean, I think just sort of top level, we've all got to take responsibility for those three, because they are three core things for not just stress, but for everything. We've got to be getting enough sleep. We've got to be eating a decent diet, and we've got to be moving every freaking day. But Polly, what would you say, aside from those three main things, what are the kind of big things that you do to combat stress? And I know we're going to talk about breathwork here, because breathwork is so helpful in this. And funnily enough, I literally last night dropped a podcast episode for my membership ladies, because we've just done the book Breath by James Nestor for our book club. And so I was literally thinking about this just yesterday, and there are so many reasons to intentionally breathe. So I know that breathwork is one thing that we will talk about, but aside from that, what other things would you recommend people do?
Yeah, so first, I mean, well, aside from breath work, let's just talk about breathing. Firstly, just if you are breathing through your mouth and your breathing is very sort of up in your chest, just day to day, that is going to be triggering your sympathetic. Just it is. That's what it does. So first thing we should all be bringing our awareness to is just day-to-day breathing through our noses as much as we can. So just breathing through your nose is one first thing you can do, and it can really help just chill you out, help you return back to that. But we'll come back to the breathing in a bit. But so I think, Lucy, it always has, one of the big things is mindfulness, is kind of bringing that awareness to your thoughts. What are you thinking about? The mindfulness and meditation, what that does, it just allows you. So a really good thing you can start to do is just, if you're feeling really stressed, just take a pause and just become aware of, first of all, what are you feeling in your body? I think just really, where are you feeling that stress? Is your chest really tight? Do you feel it in your kind of like a tightening of your throat? Perhaps you've kind of got like real butterflies in your belly. So just noticing what you're feeling physically, because you probably, or maybe your shoulders are kind of like literally up here. And then again, just you can almost sort of breathe into that, and rather than ignoring it and suppressing it, it's just like try and create space in your body for that feeling. And when you do that, it's quite weird, because you kind of almost allow yourself to feel it, and then as you exhale it, just let it go. It kind of just let it move through you. But it's just bringing the awareness to it in your body. It kind of helps you to get out of the mind into the body, and you can really just let it go. Sometimes that can be really tricky, because then your thoughts can be going a million miles an hour in your head. So again, it's the way that you think about your situation. So if you are constantly running around going, I'm stressed, I'm so stressed, immediately you're going to be giving all the signals to your body that you are so stressed. And actually what we need to try and do is detach the stress from you. So you are not actually stressed. You are experiencing stress in this moment. And this is a really subtle, nuanced kind of way of using words, but it is so powerful how we talk to ourselves. So rather than saying, I am stressed, going, I'm really experiencing a load of stress at the moment, but you are not the stress. So we just need to detach that, and that immediately kind of can help you kind of just let it go. So then it's almost like, okay, I'm experiencing this stress. I am not the stress. What can I do in this moment? Take a deep breath. And then, then we can sort of start to deal with it. It's kind of letting that stress move on by rather than constantly fusing with it.
I think part of the problem as well is that when we're in that stress, we feel like, I certainly do. Often I feel like, oh my God, but I don't have the time to do this. And I've got so much to do that I don't have the time to sit down for 15 minutes and fucking meditate. Like I certainly can get like that. And I'm sure other people can relate to that. But it's just bringing that awareness to the fact that actually when we are feeling stressed, that is exactly what we need to do, the thing that we really don't feel like doing and we really don't feel like we have time to do. Someone very close to me in my life is suffering very seriously from mental health issues at the moment. And I have been getting this person to breathe. And this person is, how you're talking about breathing like in your chest and like that shallow breathing that means that takes you into that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight. And just through 5 minutes of making them breathe, it's incredible how much of a difference that actually makes. So I think we have to just have a word with ourselves and say, I know I'm really, really stressed and therefore it feels like I don't have time for this. I don't have time for all this airy fairy stuff. Like, oh my God, I don't have time for it. Don't have time for the kind of woo-woo stuff. And actually the irony is that all the people out there saying I don't have time for the kind of and I don't have time for the woo, well, actually, there is a reason why people are really tapping into this and why all of this stuff is becoming so much more normalized, because it freaking works and it does make a difference. So
it buys you time. It will ultimately it will buy you more time to do all the things that you want to do, be more productive. I totally agree. So I mean, gosh, just last week I kind of gave the homework I gave to one of my clients was exactly this. She's really experiencing a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of that overwhelm. And when you get into that process where your thoughts are whirring and you start going down that spiral, it's really, really difficult. So literally it was like, right, she knows that when she breathes, it helps. So I was like, right, well, you absolutely have to catch yourself at that moment when your thoughts are going. You're going to say, I don't have enough time for this. You are going to say that. So it's about going, okay, now you have that awareness. You're going to say, I don't have the time to stop for 10 minutes and breathe, but I'm going to do it. And then just sit and breathe very, very deeply, really focusing on the exhale being longer than the inhale. And only then, after you have put a timer on your phone, do it for at least 10 minutes. And then you can start noticing your thoughts. And that's when, only then will you be able to kind of catch where they're going when they kind of, and actually not kind of push them away, but just notice where they're going. And then you can almost kind of go, okay, I am ruminating. I am going down this pathway of everything is shit. And that's when we've got to really try and just reach for a slightly better thought. And this can be challenging, but it's, say if you're going, everything is shit, I can't do, I haven't got any time, it's a bit like, okay, well, the good news is I now notice that I'm thinking this, and actually, are these thoughts helpful? As simple as that might be just something you could reach for. Is this helpful? No. So, okay, I'm actually going to just become aware now that what I'm thinking, that's going to be a little bit more helpful. And then you can almost sort of work up the scale from there. But it's about, a lot of this time, it's about just initially, you've just got to get into the body and out of the head. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, not at all. One thing I just wanted to go, we mentioned at the beginning is sleep, because I don't think that we always take, in the same way that we don't always take stress as seriously as we should, I sometimes think we don't always take sleep as seriously as we should. And so if you are in a place in your life where you are super stressed, I would be absolutely prioritizing sleep, prioritizing early nights. And actually, I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard somebody who knows about this stuff saying that basically the sleep on this side of midnight, the more sleep you're getting this side of midnight, the better. So rather than, I'm going to go to bed at 1 and get up at 10, that's not the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it is going to bed as much before midnight as you possibly can. But I think that it's very easy to, especially when you're feeling stressed and inevitably you've got loads of stuff to do, that's when sleep starts getting, we start eating into our sleep time, because we're often, if you're anything like me, I'm often working, late into the evening, and then you get to that point where you're like, well, I don't want to go to bed yet because I need a bit of downtime. And so prioritizing sleep is something that we should really be getting into the habit of doing. And actually what I've started getting back into the habit of doing, excuse me, and this is not least to try and get me off my screen at least like half an hour before I go to bed. But I'd basically given up on reading in bed, because I would get into bed and literally fall asleep after about half a page. And I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. But now I try, and I don't do this every night by any stretch, but I try and do this more often than not, is get into bed extra early and read for half an hour. And not only is it a really nice thing to do, but it also, I think that it's going to mean that you're more likely to get a good night's sleep. Because if you're scrolling on a screen until the second before you turn your lights out, then that's not ideal. And I mean, I wish I knew the sort of science behind this, but I think we all know that, we're meant to not look at our screens about an hour before we go to bed. But I wonder how many people actually, I reckon it's probably a very small proportion of people who phone for an hour before they go to bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because because I generally don't, but just before I go to bed, I will look at it to set my alarm.
Same.
Put it in sleep mode. So I'm still looking at it.
Yeah. With me, I'll do the same. But I'd like to tell myself that it's okay just to quickly set my alarm. That's not as bad as, lying in bed scrolling 3/4 of an hour on Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really do think that sleep has such an impact on how stressed that we feel. So we've really got to prioritize that. Maybe, I don't think have we talked about sleep on this? I can't remember. We've talked about more. I don't think we have. But I think there's a lot to be said for, I mean, both you and I are very much into our morning routines, but it's also a good idea to get into an evening routine where you have that kind of winds down time. Maybe you have a bath, maybe you have, I don't know, a cup of herbal tea or whatever, and just make bedtime a thing, rather than, here I am sitting watching Netflix, turn it off, up to bed, on my phone, turn that off, going to sleep. Because that is not, if we're feeling really stressed, that is not going to be helping us at all. So yes, that I just wanted to remember.
Yeah.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
I think sleep is key. And actually, I know that if I look at my phone or check something, it really does stop. I can't get to sleep for ages. I'm really sensitive with the screen and sleep. I've really learned that about myself. So I really know I can't look at my screen. So yeah, almost do an experiment of how easy it is to fall asleep. And yeah, sleep, you have got to prioritize it. I went through a real stage where I struggled with sleep, and it was awful because everything is magnified during the day. You can't cope with situations. That's when you tend to snap and be not, it's not very nice when you're not feeling in control of your emotions as you go through the day, because life just feels too much.
Yeah.
But that's what I also think, where something like when you do meditation or those sorts of practices, and I'm sure I've said this before, is that what that does, it buys you that moment of time before you react to whatever it is, in life, which is stressing you out. You actually can have that pause and decide in that split second that you have a choice how you react. You're able to respond to. Yeah, we did a whole episode, I think.
Yeah, we did. We did. But it's so true. I'm just gonna scroll down. There's hi Jess. The lovely Jess sent morning, lovely. Agree 100% with this. I spent about 4 months at the end of last year constantly in fight or flight mode, and it nearly broke me. Now I've changed both morning and night routine. And then she says, in bed by 8:30 and up at 5:30. Breathing has been a huge game changer. Thank you, Polly.
Oh, thanks, Jess.
Jess. But I mean, the thing is, it's like, I know that I think people can feel as though a really early bedtime is just like, what? I could go to bed that early. But actually, if you get into that mindset, it can become a really, really lovely thing to do, especially if you're getting into bed and reading for an hour. That's such a great thing to do. Polly, just briefly going back to meditation again, we always end up talking about meditation, don't we? Because one of those practices that really truly does make a difference. But I have certainly found myself that having had a pretty regular meditation routine for quite a while now, I know that I've become better able to cope with stress, for absolute sure. And again, this is something you and I have definitely said before on our Monday motivations, but with all of these things, it is so important that you don't just sack it off after 5 minutes, because in the same way that you wouldn't expect to get a six-pack after 2 weeks of going to the gym, you shouldn't expect to necessarily reap the benefits of meditation or breath work in 2 weeks. We've got to normalize sticking at things for the long term. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. That's the kind of time frame that we're looking at. And again, looking at it from the point of view, sort of using the analogy of the gym, like we would not expect to get a six-pack in less than, I don't know, I mean, I've never had a six-pack, so I wouldn't know, but I'm presuming it takes at least 6 months to a year. We wouldn't expect to get it any sooner than that. And it's the same for things like meditation and breath work. So we've got to have that patience.
Yes, I totally agree, but I would also add to that meditation, yes, sometimes it's very difficult to feel the benefits straight away, and that's why it can get quite frustrating, and it can feel difficult to drop into meditation, which is why I bloody love breath work, because actually even you can come to a breathwork session feeling really on edge, feeling really anxious, and by the end of it you can actually noticeably feel much different. You can feel much more chilled out, just so much better, because you're actually using the breath to shift that energy out of you. And of course the more you do it, the better it gets, and as you do it, you are building your capacity for stress, because each time you do it, you're actually expanding your bandwidth and that flexibility between your nervous systems. But actually it shifts. Sometimes we just need to shift that energy out of us. And sometimes with breathwork, you can do a very chilled breath pattern, which kind of helps you shift into the parasympathetic. But sometimes, and actually it can feel like, really, am I going to do this? We use more of an activating breath pattern, which meets the stress where it is. And actually that's a great way sometimes of moving out of it, because when you stop it and you kind of then chill out, it's like, it's like a reset for your system.
James Nestor talks about this in Breath, doesn't he, where he says that he talks all about the Tumo breath and the holotropic breath, which is, and basically like the Wim Hof method essentially, where it's like heavy breathing for an period of time. You're putting yourself into your sympathetic nervous system in order to then get out of it. So it seems counterintuitive, but there is there are benefits for actually deliberately, like you say, if you're doing a breathwork session that's a more intense breath. And one thing I will say is that I did one of our breathwork sessions this morning, because I more often than not now do one of your breathwork sessions. And actually it was 34 minutes, the one that I do a lot of the time. And you're absolutely right in that, yes, whilst breathwork is brilliant and if you do it consistently for the long term, then it kind of builds up your capacity and your bandwidth. But like you say, it is also a much more immediate energy shifter. And for example, this morning at the end of my breathwork session, 34 minutes worth of it, I felt fucking wow, man. My heart rate, what I always love is that my heart rate goes right down and I just feel so much more relaxed. Speaking of which, Polly Warren, you have an offering called Just Breathe, which is it's like a membership, isn't it? A breathwork. Will you tell people a little bit about it?
Yeah.
No.
So it's a membership, 22 quid every month. And for that, you can drop into any of the 3 live breathwork sessions, which I do each week. Each one has a different intention, because it's kind of that almost gives you like a North Star of something you can follow and release, essentially, or tap into. And yeah, we always start with every session with a bit of a relaxation. We then go into a breath pattern. They're also different. I choose music according to each session. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is to kind of choose the music. And then it will always probably involve some sort of hold, whether that's holding your breath at the top or at the bottom. And then at the end, there's always time, at least 1 or 2 songs where it's just allowing what we've created to properly sink and into you can just really enjoy the moment. And it is really blissful. Sometimes it really is just such a lovely thing to do. And then we kind of come back, and they're generally about 20 in Just Breathe, they're between 20 and 25 minutes the actual session. We never normally breathe for longer than about 8 minutes, so that's all the breathing, but it creates this incredible, it's just really magical. It creates an amazing energy. It's great for clearing your energy, getting rid of any stagnant energy, or for energizing you, whatever. And then so that's 3 times a week. And then I put all the recordings for the month in our kind of hub, so you can access them whenever. And actually, you can get it all on the Kajabi app. That's the platform I use. So you can get it as an app on your phone. So it's super easy to access. You can use those recordings whenever. And I'm going to be probably adding in like a longer, more meditative, longer breath, which can be really transformational, probably each month as well. So yeah, if anyone is interested, I'm doing a free breathwork event this Thursday, 7 p.m, and our intention is going to be confidence. But you will come away feeling really, really chilled out, but at the same time really like, yes, in your power, I am ready for this. So if you want to join me, come and sign up. The link's in my bio. And I would love to see you.
Yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend anyone who is remotely interested in this to come to Polly's free session, because I've now, how long have I been doing it for now? It's probably over a year, isn't it, that you and I have been doing?
No, because I started my training in April last year.
Of a Sam Skelly.
April last year.
Was it? Oh, yeah. Was it? But was that when she came to Mastermind, I was in Kathy's Mastermind?
I think that was before.
That's
so probably...
I think I sort of discovered it probably about a year ago, maybe even a bit more. But since you did your training and you and I started doing regular sessions, and I really started doing it on a regular basis, it truly is amazing. And I never do a session without coming out of it feeling completely chilled. It is amazing. And like you said before, it's like meditation on crack. Which it is. I mean, it really is. Yeah. And it's very kind of blissful. So yeah, anyone who's interested should definitely go. How can people sign up for it?
There's a link in my bio here, so just go there. It's there. It's called Breathe into Confidence on Thursday, or if they want to come to Just Breathe, it's just called Just Breathe, and we would love to see you.
Well, it's 34 minutes past 9.
Right.
Over.
Okay. All right, we better go. Thank you everybody for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time.
Next week. I'll speak to you later.
Bye.